Psalm 127 verses 3 and 4 is where we'll be today. So let's just begin right there in this teaching, this declaration. Sons are indeed a heritage from the Lord, that's children, offspring, a reward. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are the sons, the children born in one's youth. This is a really important passage around Fondren Church. It should be an important passage in any church. My wife will be with some couples today behind me after church with a lunch as she prepares some to dedicate their babies this next Sunday, March 30th. We will use this passage at the baby dedication that we have next Sunday. This is wildly important. And so we're going to talk today, and this is for everybody. This is for parents. This is for parents-to-be. It's for grandparents. You'll see that in a moment. It's for everybody because we're in this together. We all have a very vested interest in raising our children really well. So the passage says they're a blessing. They're a heritage from the Lord, a gift from God. It didn't say they're a pain or a burden or a distraction. It says children are a gift from God. So we want to be there squarely, but we also want to say that parenting can be hard. There's a lot of exhausted people before me today. No matter where you are in your parenting journey, it is exhausting. There's a story of 4 expectant fathers in a waiting room at a hospital. The nurse comes in and she tells the first guy, "Hey, sir, you're going to have twins." And the guy's like, "That's crazy because, my job, I work with the Minnesota Twins." Moments later, she comes back in and she tells the other guy, she goes, "Hey, you're going to have triplets." He's like, "Are you kidding me? I work with 3M. Moments later, she comes back, she tells the other guy, "Hey, you're going to have quadruplets." He's like, "Oh, you can't make this stuff up. I work for the Sheraton Four Seasons Hotel with Sheraton." Unbelievable. They look over, the attention is drawn to the 4th guy. He fainted. He's getting up and he says, I shouldn't have taken that job at 7-Eleven. No matter if you have 1 kid or 2 kids or 7 or 11, parenting can be hard and it can be exhausting. There's a little video, it's about 50 seconds long, and I think it so encapsulates both the frustrations and the joys of parenting. Take a look at this cutie.
Did you do anything in the bathroom?
Mm-mm.
Nothing?
Mm-mm. I was putting some lipstick on, and then I was giving my phone.
So what'd you put on?
Lipstick on.
Oh. Whose was that?
It was my lipstick.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Did you ask anybody if you could put it on?
I asked myself.
So whose lipstick is that?
Mine.
You bought it?
Yeah.
Where'd you buy it at?
My lipstick?
Yeah.
I bought it from Home Depot.
So the frustrations of parenting, that guy's got a lot more with her, doesn't he? I mean, she's a little precious powder keg, if you will. But there's a lot of cleanup that guy's going to have to do in her lifetime. But, man, when she looks at him with those big brown eyes and says Home Depot, I mean, it's over. He's the happiest guy on the planet. So it doesn't matter how many you have, and it doesn't matter what season you're in. Parenting can be so frustrating, so joyful, so exhausting. If you have babies, y'all remember Ray Romano, he talked about homes with babies are like a fraternity house. Everything is broken, nobody's sleeping, and there's lots of throwing up. When you have toddlers, that when they start walking, you start protecting, right? You never knew you had such a fascination with electrical outlets and sharp corners. When children become in elementary age, you are exhausted having to explain to them why some of their classmates can come spend the night with you, but you can't go spend the night with some of those classmates. And then you get teenagers on your hands, and you're really struggling. You want to be the cool parent. We went through that stage, right? You want to be the cool parent and not the Victorian prude, but you have to have some rules around the house. And then you send one of them off to college, and they go through the indoctrination phase of miles and miles away from you. And they come home, and the first Thanksgiving, they're sharing all of their newfound political views that fly in the face of their grandfather who stormed the beaches of Normandy and fought in World War II. There's just all kinds of stages. And then grandparents, I told you I was going to talk to you today. Your kids have kids one day, right? And then you're looking at a distance sometimes and sometimes up close, and you see it's crushing you how entangled they are, how their own identity is entangled in the performance of their own kids. And you think, should I weigh in or should I stay silent? It's exhausting, isn't it, to be a parent? And this passage tells us that children, sons and daughters, are not a burden, not a distraction, not a pain. They're a gift from God. So this series that we're in is called Solution Side. This is week 3 of Solution Side. Last week, Susan and I led us through a look at marriage, about companionship and joy and reminiscing and such. And today we're looking at parenting, that all of us in some way, either we're directly involved or we're ancillary to it, and there's a lot at stake. And so in Solution Side, the series, the teaching is flowing in part from Jeremiah 7:19 about how our heart is deceitfully wicked above all else. It's incurable. Who can understand it? We're talking about getting honest and going to the source. It's so easy to identify problems. What's easier, especially in this world, to identify what's wrong. But to get to the solutions, we've got to do those two things. Rather than blaming our parents and our gene pool and the president and Congress and whatever, we got to look inside ourselves, and we've got to go back to the source. Moses is part of that source. Look at Deuteronomy and what this passage teaches us, chapter 11. Imprint these words of mine on your hearts and minds. Bind them as a sign on your hands, and let them be a symbol on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit in your house and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the doorpost of your house and on your city gates, so that as long as the heavens are above the earth, your days are those of your children. May be many in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors. There's 2 words I would want you to circle in that passage in Deuteronomy chapter 11, the word walk and the word talk. Now, there's a lot of anatomy. He's like this is full body stuff. By the way, you can't raise children to love Jesus by default. You're not going to drift to discipling your children. There were a whole bunch of parents up in the Steeple Hall a couple of Wednesday nights ago to hear Dr. Preston Crow talk about this very thing. But you've got to be super concerted to do this. It's a whole body experience. It's not occasionally once a week if there's no travel ball or whatever. This is full on discipleship. And Moses is talking about this, and it's so beautiful to think about the walk and talk. When Susan and I look back at parenting our own, they're still being formed, but they're 26, 23, and 20. And we look at our own parenting experience and we think, those 2 things are vital, our walk and our talk. Hey, preacher, what do you talk to them about? Everything. Everything they'll let you talk to them about. Early and often, talk to your kids. And you've got to walk with them. Walking with them means you're close to them, means there's a shared journey. It means there's some engagement. Do you guys happen to know the wettest place on earth? The wettest place on planet Earth. This particular location gets more rain than any other place by far. It's in northern India, close to the nation of Bangladesh. I want to show you these roots, this bridge. It's called a living root bridge. They can't use concrete. Wood would get too wet. And so what they learned, the primitive people from long ago, the ancestors, if you will, they learned this. They would take trees on opposite sides of the river. They would unearth the roots, and then they would angle the roots toward each other across the river. Now, this doesn't happen fast. This is not a few days at, with Home Depot and do-it-yourself project. This takes a lot of time. The forethought and intentionality is quite incredible, but slowly over time, these root systems connect and meld and weave together, and they're some of those strongest bridges because of all the rain. There's flooding, there's loss of life, there's a lack of transportation of people getting from point A to point B. So the ingenuity and creativity of the human spirit is genius, isn't it? And these people built over time, they knew how to construct this so that people could pass, so that their lives could advance, so they could go and move forward. But think about this. Some people a long time ago had to do this, and they had to wait, and for many of them, they didn't see it in their generation. They were doing something that another generation benefited from. And when I think about our nation, we're not in Jerusalem anymore, if you will. If you're looking through the lens of the Bible, we're in Babylon. It's a different nation that we're living in. And some of us want to wring our hands and say, hey, there's too many problems and not enough solutions. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to live by default. We can't afford to do that. And here's my call for us today, is for us to make a commitment that we're in this together. Parents, future parents, grandparents, people that are hurting and longing to become parents. We're all in this together. So parents, grandparents, of course, but coaches and parents and teachers and student pastors and other people, we lock arms together to help a generation cross over. We're the ones who are melded and connected and woven together as we lock together to see kids go where they need to go. And notice this passage in Psalm 127. This has been pointed out many times in our church. Maybe you've heard this, but there's three things you can do with an arrow. Children are like arrows. There's three things you can do. You can direct them. You direct the arrow. You pull back the arrow, and then you release it. When you aim the arrow, you're giving direction. When you pull it back, you're preparing it. And when you release it, it's flying. And the psalmist is saying, the same thing is true for parenting. You got to give them direction. You got to prepare them for life. And then you got to let them go. And don't worry, folks, they'll come back. But you got to let them go. You got to give them direction. And so that's what I want to talk about today. In the balance of the time that we have, I want to just put two things in front of you. The first is this: how to raise a son to become a man. Michael Kimball is an author and sociologist. And years ago, he spoke to a group of West Point cadets. It was so troubling to him that he took this around, quite literally, around the world. He said his response was essentially the same, no matter the world he was in, no matter the culture. But he asked a group of West Point cadets, this is, again, how it started. He said, hey, what does it mean to be a good man? And the responses, they shouted out answers in front of him. They said a good man is a person of honor, a person of duty, a person of integrity, a person that protects the little guy, that respects women, that's a provider. That's what a good man is. But then he asked him this question. He said, what's a real man? And the answers were different. The answers they shouted out is someone that's tough, that doesn't waste his life, that gets after it, that wants a lot, that gets rich and gets laid and gets even. And those were essentially the same answers no matter where he traveled. We have to ask ourselves, moms and dads and church, what kind of men are we seeking to raise? Real men or good men? And this is important for us to think about it because we got to aim. Psalm 127 would tell us that we've got to aim in the right direction. In order to prepare them and release them, we've got to have the right goals in mind. Are we trying to raise good men? Are we trying to raise real men? Kevin Hart was in a smash hit on Netflix, a series called Netflix, and they asked him, hey, Kevin, why did you do this series on father? It's based on a true story of a woman who gave birth to a child, and then she died in childbirth, so the father is raising this child all by himself. And when he was asked, why did you do this particular series, here's what he said. I'm sure millions of dollars had something to do with it. By the way, Kevin Hart, because Thalia Mara Hall was condemned, at least temporarily, Kevin Hart had to cancel a show here in Jackson. Isn't that sad? So today I want to announce my candidacy for mayor of Jackson. We are going to turn things around, take care of our buildings. We're not going to have to close our concert halls and everything and bring Kevin Hart back. But Kevin Hart made millions of dollars doing this, but here's what he said. I thought it was pretty cool. He said, I want to portray fathers in a good light. And do you know, if you watch all the movies, if you watch all the series, that doesn't happen. Like, it's crazy. The dads are if you notice this, name your sitcom. Do y'all watch those anymore? Name whatever you stream today, whatever the series is, whatever the show, whatever the movie is, dads are doofuses. They don't know what's going on. They have to be clued in. They're very distant from the nucleus of the family. And Kevin Hart said, man, I want to portray fathers in a good way. We don't think about this enough probably, but the Industrial Revolution changed our homes. It was over 200 years ago in the 1800s, but for the first times, dads en masse went to work. If you're young, you may be saying, what are you talking about? Well, in the Industrial Revolution, prior to it, men were at home. Men worked from home. There was the farm. There was the family business. There was serious tie-in to the family. But then dad started going off to work. And here's what happened. This great disconnection occurred. Wittingly or unwittingly, dads saw themselves and their family saw them as someone who is primarily a provider. I go work, and then I come home exhausted. I am primarily a provider. What happens is dads begin to disconnect themselves from shepherding and nurturing and guiding. You say, Robert, that's not feminine. Listen, or that's not masculine, it's feminine. Listen, it's very much the way God has called men to be. There is healthy overlap that we need. But this industrial revolution occurred and it changed everything. And so now that's why when you're in a circle with men, as I am often, and you ask them about the providing side, they have lots of stories about their job. Lots of stories about going for the gusto in their work. But then when you ask them about their emotional engagement with their wives and their children especially, you can see a lot of disconnect. You can see a lot of guys becoming awkward and uncomfortable when you introduce them as being not just a provider, but a protector, but a shepherd, but a guide, but a hands-on father who's with his family often. There's a man named Gideon in the Bible. We're talking about how to raise a son to become a man. And the thing you have to do with a man is you have to build him up instead of tearing him down. You got to build him up. That's the one point under this one. You got to build him up instead of tearing him down. There's a man named Gideon in the Bible in Judges chapter 6, and he was threshing wheat at the winepress. And God and an angel appeared to him. And you'll see this in Judges chapter 6. It goes like this. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, valiant warrior." Just once, I wish my wife would talk to me that way, right? I come home and, "You valiant warrior, how was your day?" Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? And where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about?" They said, "Hasn't the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and deliver Israel from the grasp of Midian. I am sending you." This is how Gideon would heard it. "I am sending you." He said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Look, my family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's family. But I will be with you," the Lord said to him. "You will strike Midian down as if it were one man. All these men by the thousands will be like one man, because I am with you. I'm the youngest, and I'm the weakest, and I don't really come from much." And these were his excuses. And the angel and God speak into him. Now, listen, he's got a point. By the way, when men especially explain themselves and rationalize and justify, we always have a point, don't we? Because we're people of logic. "Well, I'm a farmer," Gideon is saying. And God's saying, "You're a mighty warrior." That's what our men need. Everybody does, but our boys, if they're going to become men, they need someone that they respect, someone who has authority and over their lives and love pouring into their lives to say, "Hey, you think you're just this, but you're so much more." If we're going to raise young men, boys into men, then we're going to need to build them up instead of tear them down. We're going to need to be able to speak truth to them. Three truths about children from Scripture. Psalm 127, we just read it, that children are a gift from God. In Luke 17:2, Jesus, and in other places as well, would teach us that children are the clearest expression of God on the earth. That passage, if you don't know it, is when he's talking about wolves in sheep's clothing. He's talking about perpetrators. He's talking about evil people. The church is being purged today, and we're vigilant, and we're having to look out. And Jesus said, "Hey, people come in to harm children. We can't let that happen. Children are to be loved. They're a gift from God. They need to be treasured and prized and valued, and they are the clearest expressions of God on earth." And Jesus taught, hey, if you mess up a child, if you hurt a child, it's better for something to be tied around your neck that weighs a lot and thrown into the ocean. Jesus is going to make all the wrongs right one day. And messing with kids is not the way to go. But look at the third thing. Cheated children become angry adults. Cheated children become angry adults. When there's unexpressed needs and unmet expectations, then the result is anger. And y'all, we see this. We see it all around. You ever spend time in the day or night just scrolling? And don't shake your hand, because I'll judge if you do, but just inwardly, do you ever just watch stuff online and you get into the section of fights and people are fighting? It's road rage, and they're fighting at Walmart. A lot of good fights at Walmart and Waffle House. But then you realize, man, I'm being entertained by someone else's misfortune. But deep inside, why is there, airports, airport terminals, there's a lot of rage, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of spillover that happens, man. It's serious stuff. Anger is all around us, so it's real easy for the preacher to find illustrations on this one, but since we only have a little bit of time, let me just show you Eminem. And Eminem, more has been talked about what he didn't have with his mom, but his dad walked out on him. And a lyric in his song says this: I wonder if he even kissed me goodbye. No, on second thought, I just wish he would die. If we're going to turn boys into men, good men, not just real men who have toxic masculinity, who look out for themselves, who just want to get rich and get laid and get even. If we're going to raise real men of honor who know how to provide and protect, we're going to have to address this issue of not tearing them down, but learning to build them up. From an early age, looking into them and speaking to them, hey, you are a warrior. You are a warrior, and you can be in this fight. Children are a gift from God. Children are God's clearest expression of God on earth. Don't mess with kids, Jesus is saying. As a church, we got to protect our little ones. I spent too much time this week looking at Child Protective Services, and I just punched in some numbers on children mistreated, abused. We reckon with that stuff, y'all. Because cheated children turn into angry adults, and it's all around us, and the church needs to be part of the answer. We supplement what God provides. God provides love, and we supplement that love in our world today. So we need to address this, all of us, but men in particular. In Ephesians chapter 6, it says, fathers, don't provoke your children to anger. And I would say in particular, fathers, don't provoke your boys into anger. And that's Ephesians 6. Ephesians 4 says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Translation, don't go to bed angry, because when you go to bed angry, that means you haven't reconciled a relationship. You're going to wake up angry, and the problems are going to fester and grow. And that's the result of anger. Y'all, there's a book, and I want to tell you, it's worth the $10 investment. It's simply called the Anger Workbook. Have y'all ever seen this? Order it and start it. And I would say do this workbook by yourself or in a small group. If you got some other people that are honest enough to talk about their anger, how they feel cheated and abandoned and left, and they're hurt and they're trying to get over something where someone has betrayed them, listen, the Anger Workbook is for you. There is a checklist. It's got so many more, but I want to give you just a few because in some ways they all resonate with me. This is a checklist to know if you might need the Anger Workbook. Impatience comes over me more frequently than I would like. I nurture critical thoughts quite easily. Y'all, I stand before you guilty on these. When I'm displeased with someone, I may shut down, withdraw, and pouting can be my spiritual gift. I feel inwardly annoyed when family/friends do not comprehend my needs. Tension mounts within me as I tackle a demanding task. I think you need the Anger Workbook. If these fit your life and your heart, if you're honest enough to admit it, you can work through this by yourself, with your group, with your spouse. Listen, y'all, cheated children become angry adults. And for us, we need to get honest about this. And so for our boys, we need to make sure that we're not cheating them. We need to talk to them. We need to walk with them. Deuteronomy 11, we need to walk with them and talk with them and learn how. You say, well, boys don't do that. Yes, they do. They do. We need to get them early. We need to square up our shoulders and get with them and understand that they're different than girls in many ways, their attention span and such. But yes, they do. They want to walk with us and they want to talk with us, and they need that in their lives. Children are a gift from God. Children are the clearest expression of God on earth, and cheated children become angry adults. If we're going to raise boys to become men, then we need to learn how to build them up instead of tearing them down. Second thing I want to put in front of you today is the opposite. We're going on the other side. How to raise a daughter to become a woman. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4 and 5 says this: but rather what is inside the heart, the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For in the past, the holy women who put their hope in God also adorned themselves in this way, submitting to their own husbands. These words are loaded. These words provoke anger in some of us. These words are terribly misunderstood. Susan and I said it last week, I think in at least one of the services. This word at the end is used for one another. She's to give me the spirit of respect, but I give this spirit of respect back to her, according to Ephesians chapter 5. But what I want to point your attention to is in this passage, read what's before it and what's after it. We're short on time, but read this letter. and look and see, man, what really matters, inward beauty or outward beauty? I think one of the top 5 cliches on social media is when a woman will post something and her girlfriends will say, "You are beautiful inside and out." Y'all ever do that? That's like, you got to say that, right? Even if it's not true, you need to say that. I'm kidding. But you're beautiful inside and out. So there's something that's flowing from a really good heart. You're acknowledging that girl looks good, and you're, a little bit jealous or whatever, but you want her to like your status next time, right? So you like hers and you comment with that positive comment, but there's something in you that's saying there's more to life, especially for women, than just complimenting how they look. There was an article that I read a couple of weeks ago entitled Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, and the Imperfect Standard. And in this article, this young girl, this teenage girl says, man, I scroll and I look and I feel behind. I feel less than and I feel behind. And we have to decide, is it inner beauty or outer beauty? Does it matter? Is it just attracting the attention of men and looking good? Or is it something inner? Is that what really matters? And in God's economy, it's the inner beauty that really matters. When a girl is over-sexualized at a young age, the pain and damage is so great. It's massive. This passage says that there's something about the inside that really matters. But culture is not going to tell us that. Culture is going to tell us something different. Suzanne Vivek is a woman who writes, and she has studied in-depth Disney Channel and the messages that are conveyed about men and women. And the message, I just mentioned this earlier, the message that's conveyed about men is that we're doofuses. If you look at Disney, men are portrayed negatively almost all the time. Out of touch, not involved, clueless, dorks. And women are portrayed as objects who, if they look good, they can gain the attention of men. And Jesus, if you'll remember, came and many times over affirmed women. He never disrespected them, never demeaned them, never used them or objectified them. He respected them and he valued them. In his day, men and women were listening to him teach at the same time, and in that time, that didn't happen. At the temple, even in worship, there was a women's court back in Jesus' day, and Jesus invited the women in. He gave some of his most important messages to the women first. Oh yeah, like the Easter message. The religious leaders brought this woman who had been shamed, objectified, and used. She thought her only worth was in her value and being consumed by men. And Jesus says, you're forgiven. He brought to her salvation. He brought to her friendship. He brought to her the gift that Christians should provide the world, community. Sybil Shepherd, does anybody remember her? She starred with Bruce Willis in the smash TV hit series from the 80s, Best Decade Ever, in a series called Moonlighting. And then she's a Memphis girl. She was Miss Teen Memphis. She went on to grace the cover of Glamour magazine. She was a spokesman for L'Oreal, and she was a cover girl, huge. She went on Oprah Winfrey when she was in her late 50s. And she was sitting there being interviewed by one of the greatest interviewers of all time, and she just got real. She said not that long ago she was walking across the street with her 2 daughters, and she noticed that the men were looking at her daughters instead of her. And she said in her late 50s that my fear is that as my beauty fades, I lose my worth and value. Can I just say, as a church, we need to reject that sinful and worldly standard, and that women do not lose their value. In fact, they can gain their value. I'm going to kick it to Proverbs 31 and read a few passages. Who can find a wife of noble character? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will not lack anything good. She rewards him with good, not evil, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from far away. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and portions for her female servants. She evaluates a field and buys it. She plants a vineyard with her earnings. She draws on her strength and reveals that her arms are strong. She sees that her profits are good, and her lamp never goes out at night. My girl gets it, don't she? She's productive. She's a small business owner and a real estate mogul. She's producing. Her value is not just at what she would look like. And then the most famous verse, I learned it when I was a child, Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord we will be praised. This is the fight we're in. How do we raise boys to become men, good men? How do we raise daughters to become women and women of God? Here's the thing. She needs to be praised for what is really praiseworthy. That's what we need. She needs to be praised for what is really, really praiseworthy. Look at this passage in Nehemiah. After I made an inspection, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and awe-inspiring Lord, and fight for your countrymen, your sons and daughters, your wives and your homes. Fight for them. Psalm 127, back to it, tells us how to fight. Children are a gift from God. We give them direction. We prepare them for life. And then we let them go. Men, young boys need to be built up instead of being torn down. For our girls, we need to praise them for what truly is praiseworthy. As the team begins to make their way up, our song crew, stay focused on the words that we're preaching here, if you will, despite a little bit of movement. Many years ago, I think it was 23 years ago, I had my son, only son at the time, and we went to a library. People still do that anymore. I took him to the library, and the librarian came out, and it was the Wednesday before Easter, so there was a little bit of kids around us, my son and I, and the librarian or assistant librarian. She's talking. She goes, "Hey kids, who's coming on Sunday?" And my son blurted out with the loudest voice. He said, "Jesus." And she kind of looked like, okay, yeah. And she said, "Well, the Easter Bunny." And I thought, all right, I'm not necessarily against the Easter Bunny, but, 0 for 1 here. She goes, well, and what's Friday? What's happening Friday? And inside I'm thinking, well, Good Friday, this will be good. And my son goes, "Jesus died for us." And she said, "Well, no, it's Earth Day." And I'm like, I love the earth, by the way. I live on the earth. I'm a happy inhabitant of our planet. But I want to say to you that if you think just by having your kid on earth that they're going to learn to love and follow Jesus, you're foolish. And they need us to aim them. And here's the thing. If you read Psalm 127, I didn't put it up here today. Verses 3 and 4 is what we put on the screen. But verse 1 and 2 says, unless the Lord builds a house, those who labor in vain. And it says, in vain you rise up early. You stay up late and rise up early. The Lord gives sleep to his people. Here's what I want to say to you. We're not aiming our kids correctly. We've aimed our kids at the wrong things, or we've aimed our kids at, hear me out, too many things. Because the blessing that God wants to give us, and too many of our homes don't have this, we're loaded down. And if you're loaded down, you can't be fully present. And so the choice, we've learned this through our years, and I want to say, we trial and error, not perfect, but we've made great progress. And have 3 kids we love and who love us and love Jesus and love the local church. Listen, if you're loaded down, you can't be fully present. And that's a decision. What's the hallmark, the distinguishing hallmark of this generation is anxiety. And we need to fight the powers that be. We need to get back to raising boys and girls to become men and women of God. Look at this. You've seen this. Little boy, his dad comes home from work. That's it. And my hope for that dad, whoever he is, that he will keep that going. Don't lose the affection that you have for your children. And you see that little boy, it was kind of quick, but you've seen this. He throws his hat as he runs. He learned that from somewhere. Any guesses where? He learned that from somewhere. And our children are watching. That's why Deuteronomy 11, Moses nailed it, y'all. Walk and talk. And it's a full life. Stand with me. I say this often. How do we raise our kids? Let me help you out. You say, Robert, I'm not a spiritual leader. Take them to church and talk about it at home. Take them to church and talk about it at home. Here's another thing you can do. Ask your kids, no matter their age, hey, can I pray for you? How can I pray for you? What's something I can pray for you for? And there'll be little bumps along the way. There may be some awkward moments, but just stay at it and keep doing it, and you will be rewarded. Take them to church and talk about it at home. Ask them how you can pray for them. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to think. If you do both of those things, guess what? You're a spiritual leader. You're a spiritual leader, and you're going far down the road of what it means to be a parent. So I want us to sing a song, but as we sing, we have a few minutes. I want to invite you to pray today. A visible manifestation of our need to raise children well, to heal what is broken. And after we sing, here's what I want you to do. Anybody that can, our leaders, staff, elders, deacons, group leaders, people, just whoever wants to pray, to come to the altar. If you're married, come with your spouse. And I want to invite you in the room, if you are aching and longing to become parents, and it hadn't happened yet, come to the altar today. And as we sing, just pray. And at the end of the song, when Ryan and the team stops, I'm going to come up and pray a prayer over us. And I'm going to pray a Joel 2:25 prayer. I'm going to pray a Malachi 4:16 prayer, that God will restore our homes. And so today you come. Kneel where you are or come forward today. Let's let this altar be full as we sing, and let's seek God. What do you need today? What do you need in your home? What do you need in your heart? You come.